For many teenage girls, the idea of meeting the love of their life, eloping, and getting married is a cherished dream. Caroline Crouch was no exception. At just 15 years old, she found herself captivated by a 27-year-old pilot, Haralambos Babish Katupis, who would fly his helicopter over her school, winning her heart. They eloped and married, but what seemed like a perfect fairy tale would soon take a dark turn. On Tuesday, May 11, 2021, at 4:30 a.m., Babish was abruptly awakened from his sleep in their two-story home in the suburbs of Glica. He was quickly overpowered by three masked intruders armed with pistols. They tied him up, blindfolded him with duct tape, and then turned their attention to Caroline, who was only 19 at the time. Their 11-month-old daughter was asleep nearby, unaware of the horror unfolding. The intruders, speaking in Greek and Albanian accents, demanded to know where the money was. Caroline, thinking this was a robbery, would soon face a tragic fate. Born on July 12, 2001, in Athens to retired engineer David Crouch and Susan de la Costa, Caroline grew up on the island of Alonissos after her family moved there when she was just 8. Embracing her coastal surroundings, she developed a passion for scuba diving and swimming. Caroline met Babish during a Good Friday parade in 2017. 3 years later, they married in Portugal on July 15, 2019. Just days before the incident, they had purchased land to build their dream home, with Caroline receiving a €50,000 gift from her parents to help with the purchase. Additionally, they had about €10,000 hidden away in their home to cover construction costs. At that time in Greece, many people preferred to keep cash at home due to concerns about bank stability. Caroline likely shared this sentiment, unaware of the tragedy that awaited her. During the terrifying ordeal, Babish and Caroline were filled with fear as the intruders pressed for information. In a desperate attempt to appease them, Babish revealed the location of their hidden money, stashed inside a Monopoly game box. The intruders took the cash but continued to search for more, rummaging through the house for valuables. Despite giving them everything they had, Babish and Caroline pleaded for their lives and the safety of their daughter. Babish could hear the screams of Caroline as the intruders threatened their infant. Though blindfolded, he struggled against his restraints, but the rope was tightened, causing him to faint multiple times. When he regained consciousness, he realized the intruders had left. The only sounds he could hear were his daughter's cries. After about 30 minutes, Babish managed to reach his mobile phone and dial emergency services, using his nose to make the call. When connected, he urgently requested an ambulance and detailed their situation, desperate for help. Babish, struggling to communicate with duct tape around his mouth, managed to convey only fragmented words during his emergency call. When the operator asked him to explain what had happened, he could only say, "Robbers came in." An hour and a half had passed since the intruders had entered Babish and Caroline's home. First responders arrived at approximately 6 a.m. As they rushed up the front steps, they were met with a scene of devastation. The living room and kitchen were in complete disarray, drawers were emptied, and belongings were strewn across the floor. Among the chaos lay an open Monopoly box, the same box where Babish and Caroline had hidden their money. A security camera was found on the living room couch, seemingly torn from its mounting, with its memory card missing. Tragically, they discovered the lifeless body of a white and brown husky puppy who had been strangled with her own leash. Babish, struggling to communicate with duct tape around his mouth, managed to convey only fragmented words during his emergency call. When the operator asked him to explain what had happened, he could only say, "Robbers came in." An hour and a half had passed since the intruders had entered Babish and Caroline's home. First responders arrived at approximately 6 a.m. As they rushed up the front steps, they were met with a scene of devastation. The living room and kitchen were in complete disarray, drawers were emptied, and belongings were strewn across the floor. Among the chaos lay an open Monopoly box, the same box where Babish and Caroline had hidden their money. A security camera was found on the living room couch, seemingly torn from its mounting, with its memory card missing. Tragically, they discovered the lifeless body of a white and brown husky puppy who had been strangled with her own leash. Babish was located on the bedroom floor, with duct tape binding his eyes and mouth and restraints securing his hands and feet. On the bed lay Caroline Crouch, who was unresponsive, while their infant daughter sat beside her, crying and trying to wake her mother. Although the baby was visibly distressed, she appeared to be unharmed. Unfortunately, first responders quickly noted Caroline's pale complexion and determined that she had been murdered. Upon being freed from his restraints, Babish was visibly in shock as he processed the loss of his wife, the woman he had loved for 5 years. The officers prioritized the safety of the infant and began to gather information from Babish about the events that had transpired. From their investigation at the crime scene, police concluded that 4 men were involved. 3 had entered the home, while the 4th kept watch. They reconstructed the sequence of events leading up to the tragedy, noting that the intruders had approached the house via a dirt road leading to the back. 2 intruders initially attempted to break in through the rear door, but were unsuccessful. They then removed security pins from a basement window to gain entry into the house. Once inside, they tragically harmed the family's 7-month-old husky, Roxy, using her own leash. The intruders then made their way to the main bedroom where Babish and Caroline were asleep. They caused damage throughout the house and stole money from a Monopoly box. In a violent act, they harmed Caroline by smothering her with a pillow. Babish, who was drifting in and out of consciousness, may have been perceived as deceased, leading the intruders to believe they had left no witnesses. The investigation revealed that Caroline suffered a prolonged attack, lasting about 6 minutes. Bruises on her body indicated there was a struggle, and marks on her lips suggested that sharp objects might have been involved. No signs of sexual assault were found. Despite the extensive damage to the couple's home, the intruders left little concrete evidence behind. The only item found by first responders was a hood belonging to one of the intruders, which likely fell during the altercation. This provided a small clue, and Babish was able to offer a description that led to the creation of a sketch of a tall, dark-skinned individual. Even while disoriented, Babish identified 2 firearms used in the incident, a black pistol and a silver Colt. Investigators later determined that the intruders escaped with €10,000 in cash and €20,000 in jewelry. Authorities classified this incident as the work of professional criminals who had likely monitored the family before the attack. The police stated that the incident was both brutal and violent, suggesting it reflected a lack of empathy and strong antisocial tendencies in the perpetrators. As the investigation unfolded, many began to question the motives behind the actions. If money was the goal, why was violence necessary? Some speculated that the intruders may have been under the influence of drugs, impairing their judgment. Others theorized that Caroline might have recognized them, leading her to resist, especially given her background as a black belt kickboxer. This could have prompted the intruders to silence her, particularly if she began to scream while her infant daughter was in a vulnerable position. Despite the many theories, investigators were certain that the attack was premeditated. They believed the intruders were aware of the couple's financial situation and had likely received inside information. To follow this lead, police conducted interviews with Babish and Caroline's acquaintances. Additionally, they reviewed security camera footage from nearby homes and businesses, which revealed a dark-colored vehicle followed by a motorcycle circling the couple's residence on the morning of the incident. Caroline Crouch was laid to rest 3 days after her tragic passing on the Greek island of Alonissos, a place cherished by her parents and where she spent her childhood. Babish paid a heartfelt tribute to his wife, expressing his gratitude for having met Caroline, for her love, and for being the mother of their daughter. He reflected on the sorrow that their daughter would grow up without memories of her mother, but assured that Caroline's spirit would live on through her. Meanwhile, during a routine traffic stop in northeast Greece, authorities pulled over a 36-year-old Georgian national named Georgi Herajishvili, who was on his way to the Bulgarian border. Upon checking his passport, officers discovered it was fake, raising suspicions about his identity. Investigators soon learned that Herajishvili had a criminal background, with multiple prior convictions. He was wanted for a series of 12 break-ins across Athens over the previous 6 months. Notably, 3 of these incidents occurred in the same neighborhood as Babish and Caroline. One robbery involved Herajishvili and his accomplices breaking into a home through a rear window, similar to the method used in Babish and Caroline's case. During that incident, the perpetrators threatened the female occupant and stole approximately €10,000 in cash and jewelry. Another robbery on March 7th, just 2 months prior to the tragic event, involved tying up 4 individuals, including an older couple and their cleaning lady, in a similar manner. The stolen items had significant monetary value. Adding to the suspicion, Herajishvili bore a striking resemblance to a sketch created from Babish's description of the intruder. The accumulating evidence against him included a history of violent break-ins, an attempt to flee the country, and physical similarities to the sketch. Confident in their findings, the police arrested Herajishvili and detained him for 4 days, employing various interrogation techniques to obtain information regarding the events surrounding Caroline's murder. Despite being questioned, Babish maintained his innocence, stating he had never heard of Caroline Crouch. However, the evidence against him was lacking, leading police to clear him of any involvement in her murder. As a result, 3 police officers from the Athens homicide squad faced demotion. The investigation shifted focus to a local Albanian organized crime group. Initially, police identified a list of 100 suspects, which was eventually narrowed down to 10 individuals known for their criminal activities. These individuals were shown to Babish, though further details were kept from him. As the investigation dragged on, public patience waned amid rising concerns about crime in the area. A reward for information about Caroline's case remained unclaimed, and residents of Athens lived in fear. Experts noted that this was not an ordinary case. If it were, it would have been solved by now. Investigations revealed no DNA or fingerprints at the scene. Caroline's family expressed gratitude for the ongoing pursuit of justice. Babish actively supported the police efforts and kept Caroline's case in the public eye, using social media to connect with supporters. A breakthrough occurred on June 17th, 37 days after Caroline's death, during a memorial service held for her. Detectives approached Babish discreetly after the ceremony, urging him to come to Athens for an important identification. They had followed many leads and uncovered discrepancies in the accounts surrounding Caroline's murder. Babish had initially claimed that intruders broke in through a basement window, but investigators determined that window was too small for the suspect he described. Babish also stated that the intruders had ransacked the house, yet neighbors reported only hearing the family's puppy crying that night, with no signs of a struggle. Moreover, Babish claimed that the intruders had removed the memory card from the living room security camera, but data revealed it was taken out at 1:20 a.m., hours before the alleged break-in. Caroline's smartwatch showed her pulse was normal at 3:58 a.m., but spiked significantly at 4:05 a.m., indicating severe stress, and readings showed her heart stopped at 4:11 a.m., before the time Babish suggested the murder occurred. Police data from Babish's fitness app showed he was moving around during the time he claimed to be tied up. The police's attempts to reenact his emergency call were unsuccessful. Further investigation revealed that Caroline had attempted to book a hotel for herself and their daughter on the night of her murder and had texted a friend about wanting to leave Babish. Babish and Caroline's relationship began during a holiday in Ionissos, where Babish was charismatic and financially secure. He gained Caroline's attention with extravagant gestures, but their fairy tale romance turned into a nightmare, as she later expressed doubts about their relationship in her diary. Entries revealed arguments and her desire to leave, highlighting Babish's increasingly manipulative behavior. Despite her love for him, Caroline felt trapped, especially after becoming pregnant. In her diary, she documented her struggles, including a tearful confrontation with Babish, her attempts to leave, and her fears about their daughter growing up without both parents. In the wake of Caroline's death, police informed Babish that he was now a suspect, presenting overwhelming evidence that contradicted his initial statements. After an extensive 8-hour interrogation, Babish began to confess, but his story was filled with inconsistencies. He claimed that an argument escalated into violence, leading him to strangle Caroline in a moment of rage. He described staging the scene to look like a home invasion, even harming their dog Roxy and tying himself up to mislead investigators. Babish acknowledged he deserved punishment, but attempted to deflect blame onto Caroline. His actions led to the tragic loss of a mother for their daughter, who would never know her. This case, later dubbed the murder that fooled the world, highlighted how Babish's overconfidence led him to leave key evidence intact. In May 2022, he was charged and found guilty of premeditated murder, obstructing justice, and animal abuse.